This podcast is brought to you by iPlayHockey.ca. iPlay is the leading hockey insurance provider to coaches, camp instructors, spring and summer hockey leagues, and tournaments across Canada. If you need insurance for hockey, iPlay has you covered. iPlay also provides hockey players and coaches with a wide range of free tools, drills, and skills in their drill vault to enhance on-ice performance, and they provide crucial off-ice knowledge as well. So if you need insurance for a hockey team, league, or camp, or if you just want to teach your kids some new drills, head on over to iPlayHockey.ca and check out their new website.
It's that time of year again, everybody. It is time for our World Junior Preview Show. This is part one. We've got part two coming. Welcome to episode 260 of the Boys in Booth podcast. Cody, Abrams, and Melbourne. And of course, we unfortunately couldn't get all three of us together in person, but we have 2/3 of this show in person here. That's okay. Case, we miss you. Not being in person for this one, but hey, great to jump on and talk some World Juniors, players to watch, of course, and looking forward to the tournament starting in Minneapolis on Boxing Day.
Gotta say, Harp, great intro. Nice to be in person here. 2 out of 3 is pretty good, but I'm right here. You don't have to yell at me, all right? You can keep your voice down. I'm right beside you. Case can hear you too, so we're fine. Right? So,
yes.
So let's get into it.
Good point. Thank you for saying that. All right. As we mentioned, episode 260, this is going over players to watch in Group A at the 2026 World Juniors, and 261 is for Group B, which of course includes Team Canada. So let's get started with Group A here, players to watch, and we will start with Team Slovakia. Case, why don't you kick us off?
Every single time you throw me for an absolute loop who you pick first. Yeah, so Slovakia. After pumping out some top-end prospects in the last little bit, Slavkovsky, Nemitz, Dvorsky, Honzek, etc., and then a couple good runs at the international level. That's bronze at the Olympics. Decent run in 2024 where they got upset in the end. Then last year they gave Finland a scare. Well, it looks like Slovakia is rebuilding in the World Juniors. Is that a thing that you do? Sure. Is that a thing? I don't know. Anyways, they have 19 players that will be draft eligible, will be eligible to play in the 2027 World Junior Championship this year. 19 players. That is just crazy. And out of them, I think there are 2 draft eligible forwards that I have my eye on, and one of them has a name that I just could not pass up, and that's Adam Nemitz, who's the brother of Devils defenseman, Slovak international, 2nd overall pick, Šimon Nemitz. And Adam, the apple doesn't fall too far, I'll tell you that. He's currently projected to go late first round or maybe early second round, and has spent the last couple of seasons playing at the top tier in Slovakia, playing against men. He was actually last year put as high as 12th overall by Scott Wheeler. And that's mostly due to the way he sees the game, as well as his skill with the puck on his stick and his compete level. But what has really allowed him to stick around at the top level in Slovakia against men is his 2-way responsibility. And I expect that a lot of the offense is going to come through Chauvin, Nemitz, and Shrenko. And I think the latter 2, they'll want to get a lot of experience so that they can lead this team next year on top of that when the rebuild's done.
Yeah, for sure. This is a player, Case, I knew you were going to take even before we had talked about it prior to this episode, because of course, right? Like there's the connection to his brother Simone. You see him there on Elite Prospects. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see a lot of Elite Prospects on this episode, because that's where we get the most up-to-date information on these prospects. So that's what we're going to do. But yeah, I mean, he's projected to go this year as probably a late first or an early second. You know, you see kind of right here where some of the other draft people have ranked him. So yeah, we'll see what he can do. We'll see if he can live up to his brother's name. I know it's a tough one because Simone was drafted so high, but it'll be interesting because, like you said, Case, this team is a little thinner than it has been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious why he's kind of dropped a bit more than 12th overall, where Scott Wheeler had him last year. But I think that, as he continues to mature and grow in size, that this is going to be a valuable player in the way that he's a two-way, responsible young player. And I think that's going to be big for the World Juniors, especially for a team that's not really expected to be in the medal group this year. They kind of have been the last couple seasons, but taking a step back, like I said, 19 guys are going to be eligible for 2027. So I think he's going to show a lot here, and it could actually bump him back into the first round here.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see for sure. And I think he has about 15 points in 28 games in Slovakia's top league. So he's producing and playing against men, and that's something that is, it's going to come up. Yeah, you can see there 15 and 28 in Slovakia. So that's going to come up throughout this episode. Guys who have played against men typically have an edge in this tournament. We always call it a 19-year-olds tournament, but it's also players who are younger who have played in those pro leagues, whether it's Slovakia, whether it's Switzerland, whether it's the Dell, or obviously the SHL or the Liga. Like, guys who have experience in those pro leagues typically have an edge. So I'm interested to see what Nemec will do.
100%. And this is a great opportunity for Adam Nemec, like many others, to kind of change the narrative about themselves in this tournament. So if he comes out and is very productive, like we certainly expect him to be for the Slovakian team, then we could see him go in early in the first round and rise his draft stock a little bit, or raise his draft stock a little bit, excuse me. So a player to watch for sure. I think this is a great pick.
Okay, we'll move on now. Case, you mentioned the player that I was going to take. It's Jan Chauvin, the center, right winger, forward, whatever you want to call him, the sixth rounder from the LA Kings in 2025. 6'3", 190 frame, and I'll get him up here. Share the screen. I'll get him up on the board so people can see his elite prospects page as well. Like I said, he's one of the few drafted players on the team. And he's known as sort of a two-way player, but can also make plays. He's playing for the Sudbury Wolves in the OHL this season, and it's his first year in North America. And his production isn't exactly what you would expect from a player hoping to dominate this tournament, but I think he's one of their best choices in terms of offensive players here because he has a bit of that North American experience, and he's getting acclimatized to the North American ranks. So Jan Chauvin is the guy that I'm excited to watch here for Team Slovakia. What do you guys think?
This podcast is sponsored by SeatGeek, the absolute best ticket app out there. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals to tickets at your favorite sporting event. SeatGeek does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know whether you're getting a good or a bad deal. Last time I got tickets to see the Devils play, I first saw red tickets. I waited it out, monitored the price in-app, and once I saw green, I pulled the trigger. SeatGeek makes it that easy. And here's the best part. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Click the link in our description to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek. Yeah, he's one of the three guys I highlighted that I think the offense is going to come through them, especially on the power play for Jan Chauvin. So big frame. I'm curious to see if they're going to play him kind of in front of the net because that's more his style, or if they're going to put him out as a big weapon, one-timer shot. It could come either way from Slovakia.
Interesting point about Chauvin. Last year on the team, he had 1 goal, 1 assist for just 2 points in 5 games. But every other player on the team who had more points than him at the World Juniors last year has graduated. So It's going to be on him. He's going to be a player who's going to be relied on.
Totally. By the sounds of it and by the looks of it, Chauvin is a guy who can play in all situations, good on the forecheck, obviously has a big frame and can contribute offensively as well. So really great opportunity for him to be one of the go-to guys in all situations for the Slovakian team. they'll certainly need him after a good couple of years, and a squad that has certainly come down to earth a little bit in terms of talent on this roster. But he'll be a go-to guy for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, who you got?
Absolutely. All right, I'm going with a defenseman who was passed up in the 2025 draft. Some great connections to Minnesota, where of course the tournament is played this year. Luka Radivojevic on the blue line for Slovakia, and he will be one of, if not the go-to guy on the blue line for this team. The connection to Minnesota, this will be really cool for him to play this tournament there, because his father, Branko, played for the Minnesota Wild. So, that should give him some extra motivation and just mean more to him to be playing there and to really go out and have a good showing for this Slovakian team. They'll be counting on him. This will be his final World Junior Tournament. This will be his third. Very similar to a guy like Maxim Sturbach, the second rounder of the Buffalo Sabres, who played 3 tournaments as well. And maybe we could be looking at Radivojevic being drafted, by an NHL team sometime in 2026. So expect him to have a good showing. The great connection there with his dad playing for Minnesota, playing in that building. So really expecting good things from Radivojevic, who should be a stalwart on the blue line for Team Slovakia.
Yeah, I think he's likely to be the quarterback of this team and get a lot of playing time on the back end. But I was shocked when he didn't get drafted last year, and it's more than likely due to his size. He's small defenseman, 5'10", and it just seemed like he was once upon a time talked about as a first round pick, like years ago, and then kind of fell off the radar. I don't know if maybe moving to the USHL was a bad thing for his career and really set him back. I mean, he was playing pro games in Sweden before then, but now he's in the NCAA playing a bit more meaningful hockey. Good opportunity at this tournament. He was decent for them in past years and was the captain of the U18 team. So I expect a lot of playing time out of here, and then probably expect him to get drafted after this as a 19-year-old player in the draft, and more than likely in the later rounds to a team, that more of a playoff team, because I feel like they take flyers on older guys at that point because they need guys that are closer to be ready. So I expect him to get drafted if he has a good tournament.
Yeah, of course. And we were just looking at it. We had it up on the screen, 9 points in 16 games in NCAA right now for BU. As a undersized, kind of mobile, puck-moving guy, like you would expect him to be the quarterback, like we've talked about on this power play for Slovakia. And yeah, I mean, we'll see what kind of tournament he has and if he impresses any scouts at this tournament, and could definitely see him being an overager picked, because you're totally right, Case. Teams who are in their window and foresee their window being open for, another 2 to 4 years are more likely to take flyers on guys like that who are overagers. And the first one that I think of, a lot of goalies it happens to, actually, but Dennis Hildeby was a guy who was passed up on in the draft, and then the Maple Leafs picked him as an overager, and he's already in the NHL. So
Dennis Hildeby, back-to-back World Junior mentions. Unbelievable.
I mentioned him last year?
Last year's episode, you brought him up when we were talking about goalies and overagers. And
did I really?
Yeah, we went from Ilya Nabokov to Dennis Hildeby.
Yeah. That's funny. That's the first name that comes up because he's in the Leaf system and he's playing NHL games. That is
and
so
I will correct
rare.
You that Radivojevic plays for Boston College, and I only correct you as someone who makes that mistake as well. I did it last year with I think I did it with Celebrini. So
yeah, that's bad. That's bad. People don't like that one. Easy to see how you can make that mistake, but that's a bad one.
BU and BC, yeah, definitely understandable. Maybe not to Boston hockey fans, that for sure. And just quickly again on Radivojevic, it's teams like Minnesota, to your point, Case, that, would take a flyer on a player like this in the later rounds. And Minnesota certainly did with a Finnish player that we will be talking about in part 2 of this. So there we go.
Okay.
All right.
Before we move on to Switzerland, just the last thing here that I want to mention, because you brought up Minnesota. Did you guys hear that the lead scouts and the guys who are in charge of drafting players went from Vancouver to Minnesota 5 years ago when Benning fired everybody, and then now they've picked all of these guys who are sick, Yurov, and I think it was after Kaprizov, but Faber was a guy on the radar. They're just making all these sick picks, and then you look through the list of World Junior players even this year, and it's oh, he's a Minnesota pick. Oh, he's a Minnesota pick, and it's just they're just so lucky. They have one of the best scouting staffs in the league, honestly.
They really do. And Judd Brackett is a big part of that, obviously, in that front office. And they are not afraid to take big swings. And it's because of the Yurovs and some of the other young players that they have that they're able to make deals like the Quinn Hughes trade. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And the interesting part of that whole trade, and not to dwell on this, we're going to move on, but is that those guys in the scouting staff remembered Quinn Hughes. Of course, it's not easy to see how good of a player. It's very easy to see how good of a player he is, but that was part of it. They're he's worth it, and drafting those players, was that's what allowed them to get Quinn Hughes, because they had so many good players from drafting so well for so long.
Well, and again, in part 2 of this, we'll have a Minnesota prospect that we'll be talking about for Team Finland. So stay tuned for that in part 2.
Okay. Switzerland.
Okay.
Case.
I don't have a lot of hope for this team. I don't think they're going to be very competitive in the tournament, but I mean, maybe they're sniffing the quarterfinals in a medal round, but more than likely they're going to be just aiming to stay as far away from relegation as possible. And I think that to do that, it's going to be up to the back end of this team. 2 guys are going to be really leading the pack here, and the player I'm picking is the returning player Ludvig Jönsson. Jönsson was an impactful player for them last season as a younger guy. He played a lot of minutes. He, in particular, was very good in that 7-5 game against Sweden, where they almost upset Sweden. And it actually ended up with him getting drafted in the 6th round because of this tournament to Utah. And it's a guy who has a lot of experience internationally, 61 games in the Swiss top league as well. And he's more of a rounded 2-way guy compared to Mugli, who I'd say is, going to be the other defender leading this team. And then who's more offensive. And I think he's as of a defensive defenseman as Sensonen. So it's certainly going to come down to the back end of Switzerland. They have decent goaltending, but it's really lacking up front for the offense. And I think Ludvig could be the guy.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. You always have to look at players on teams like this, like Switzerland, who are, at one point, they can have some good years, but we got to be honest, I don't think they're going to be as competitive this year as they have been in the past. So you have to look at the players who are already drafted, see if they can carry the mail. Returning players, of course, are very important, and Ludvig Jönsson is both of those. So, yeah, he'll be relied on quite a bit on the back end for sure.
BetterHelp is the paid partner of this video. The new year is a blank space for you to write a new story. BetterHelp makes it more convenient to get you started. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy more comfortable and convenient. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Your next chapter starts today. Get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp online therapy at betterhelp.com/boysinthebooth in paid partnership with BetterHelp. Not much more to add. One of the three NHL prospects on the blue line for the Swiss team that is 19. So that means that all three of these defensemen, Janssen in particular, that we mentioned, should be very impactful and should be able to, carry a lot of the load for the Swiss team that, yes, will have a tough time. Although I will say they've got a couple of goaltenders here who could potentially steal games for this Swiss team, I think. And I know that you're going to get to one of those goaltenders here in a second.
Yes, I will mention one of the goaltenders. And boy, this is just one of the most fun episodes of the year because we cannot pronounce any of these names, or at least I can't. So I'm going to struggle through this one. But the player that I'm going to be watching very closely is actually the brother of one of the goaltenders on this team. Okay, so we've got brothers on this team, which is very fun and exciting. But I'm going to be talking about Jonah Nugent-Schwander. Okay, I think I did all right.
Neuenschwander?
Yeah.
Neuenschwander.
So you're not talking about one of the goalies,
no,
okay?
But I am talking about his brother, and I was going to mention the goalie as well because, of course, you have to mention any connections like that if it's his brother.
Yeah.
Neuenschwander, okay, I think we've got that right. And I don't know how Gord Miller and Mike Johnson do it, but they nail it every year, no matter what. But yeah, this kid was on the team last year, and like he's so super duper young, and he's just so impressive. So he's eligible for the 2027 NHL draft. He has 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points in the National League this season as a 16-year-old. Playing on a team, by the way, with former Leafs legend Harry Sateri. I don't know, that's a deep pull. I don't know if you remember that one. Claimed by Phoenix or Arizona, I'm not sure who it was at the time, off waivers. Never played a game for the Leafs. And also Lias Andersson, if you remember him, the former Rangers pick. So he has 6 goals, 10 points, or 10 assists for 16 points in 15 games in the U21 league. So that's kind of more of his speed. And like I mentioned, his brother is the goalie on the Swiss team, who's a 4th rounder picked by the Ducks. So yeah, I was just looking through this team and I saw some players who were interesting, but Neuenschwander, born in 2009, was a guy that I had to pick because, like, guys, we are getting so old. The fact that he was born in 2009 is insane. Think about that. The year John Tavares was drafted.
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah.
And I think we did talk about him a little bit last year. No one highlighted him as like a player to watch, but we did mention that he was a 15-year-old in the tournament, and that had to be said. And it was fun keeping an eye out for him because just a 15-year-old is just unheard of in this tournament. So, I mean, he could play 4 tournaments, but he's currently projected to go top 10 in the 2027 draft. I think he's consolidated at 9 right now on Elite Prospects, but he's up there, and there's a couple of 2027 draft picks in this tournament.
Yeah, just think about that. 2009. Like, we are so old.
I know.
Like,
I know.
It's brutal.
It's wild looking at these birth years. Yeah, really cool to see him in the tournament last year as a 15-year-old. A year later, a lot can change. He's obviously highly thought of for the 2027 draft. Switzerland's going to need all the help they can get. His brother is on this team as well. So they're in this together, and looking forward to seeing what Neuenschwander can do up front. And of course, his brother between the pipes, and between him and Christian Kirsch, 2nd round pick of San Jose. Elijah Neuenschwander, of course, picked by Anaheim. Both big goaltenders, very good goaltending prospects. I think Switzerland may be able to steal a game or two with either one of those 2 gents between the pipes.
Of course. And it happens every year, right? There's always a performance, whether it's a player from Switzerland or Slovakia or, even Denmark or Kazakhstan in years past, like where they just goalie steals a game. And it's just par for the course in this tournament. And that's what makes it so fun.
Peter Mrazek for Team Czechia. Remember that?
That's right. And now Czechia is like one of the hockey superpowers, like as it stands right now, as at least in the World Junior capacity. Like, So, but it's crazy thinking back to that team with Peter Mrazek, like,
Yeah. No, absolutely. We see upsets. The Swiss, they're a scrappy team. They'll give you everything that you can handle, and a couple of good goaltenders there as well. So I'll keep it short and sweet for my player to watch for Team Switzerland. Case, you mentioned him a couple of minutes ago. One of the go-to guys on this blue line returning is Leon Mugli. This will be his final tournament. 19-year-old, maybe the second best defensive prospect, in the Washington Capitals system behind Cole Hudson, for sure. 6'1", puck mover, just offensive. He's played a couple of games already for the AHL's Hershey Bears, continuing to develop. This is a very good player who Washington got in the second round of the draft, and he will be in all situations on the ice a ton for the Swiss team. They'll really need him, and he should have a great tournament here for the Red and White.
Yeah, he's part of that trio of defensemen that I brought up earlier, just all the drafted guys. And Mugli, I remember from last year as well, and he was kind of the guy on the back end last tournament. So you have to imagine that he's going to be playing a ton of minutes if he's healthy. I think he's a little bit banged up, so I have no doubt that he's going to push it to try to make it to this tournament because it was questionable, and if it's questionable, they're going to play. So yeah, hopefully that's the case for him because he'll be an important guy for this team, likely the captain.
For sure. And like you mentioned, Harp, some AHL experience. I know it's just 4 total games, but I think that makes all the difference when you're playing in this tournament against players who have only played major junior or other minor leagues overseas. So I think it's important to get those games under your belt, and I think it'll be valuable experience for him coming into the tournament.
Totally. And again, it's the Hershey Bears as well, like one of, if not the best American Hockey League team. So I think just a little bit of experience there for him is really big.
For sure.
All right.
Germany?
Team Germany.
What you got in Germany, Case?
I was actually... I'm not often too excited to talk about Germany because I feel like they only have, a handful of guys who are really notable. I mean, they've put out some pretty good prospects lately, and obviously great guys in the past in Stützle and Leon Draisaitl, and throw Peterka in there, and recently dropped Reichel. But yeah, there's one guy on this team, 2 guys. One guy I brought up last year, so I can't talk about him again. But the one guy I'm going to bring up is a 16-year-old top 10 projected pick of the 2027 draft, joining Neuenschwander, and that is Max Penkin, who I've got some interesting info on. And he was the first player ever to get exceptional status to play in the U20 German League at the age of 15. And on top of that, went on to put up 50 points in 41 games in that season and led his team to a championship where he also led the playoffs in points. And then after tearing up the U20 German League this year, he got the call up to the Dell and is currently the youngest player in that league at 16 years old, which is something Tim Stützle can't even claim he did. And he has 2 goals in 14 games with the Dell team. Mannheim, I think it's the same team Stützle pay for. I watched a couple highlight packages because, I mean, we're talking top 10 pick. He's projected 8th right now. I had to watch a bunch of clips on him, and I can't believe how many highlights started with him stripping the other team of the puck on the forecheck and then either like dipsy doodling, dangling, and finishing it himself, or spotting an open team up for a one-timer right away, a teammate. Unreal hands, a great sense of where to be on the ice at all times, and he is going to be big for Germany this tournament at 16 and then the next 2 after that. We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether brand new, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters. And that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books to maximize their profits. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and we are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all of the top sports books in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users, and when you register through our link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful and profitable sports betting. So, if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand at the same time, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through our link in the description below, signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. If you're planning on signing up for a new sportsbook anyways, you might as well use our link and support the boys. So, one more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth.
Yeah, always love to see a young player make his mark at this tournament as early as possible. Anytime you have a player that young playing in a pro league, like I feel like I keep saying it, but it's true. Like getting that experience that young is really important. And that's interesting, Case, that you found out about the exceptional status thing too, being 15 and just looking at his stats, like you mentioned, like tore it up. So yeah, I mean, 2 goals, no assists in 14 games in the Dell. That's tough. I wonder if that's the best thing for his development overall. But I do think it is important to get into those games at least and play against men. But this is the type of stat line that shows you why projected stats on elite prospects are kind of bogus, because it says he's on pace for 5 goals, 0 assists in 36 games. So I think he'll mix in an apple. What do you think?
Well, and I think as the year goes on, those numbers will go up. He will get better. Adler Mannheim is a really strong organization in the Dell, led by Dallas Aikens, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So, of course, you're familiar of him from his time in the Toronto organization, obviously with Anaheim. Really detail-oriented, good at developing young players and all of that. So I think under his leadership, Penkin will just continue to grow and mold himself into a really good player. And he's obviously highly touted for that 2027 draft, which is expected to be loaded with talent as we're expecting it to be here in 2026. So wanted to mention that connection as well with Aikens and Adler Mannheim. But yeah, great pick. Looking forward to seeing him suit up for the Germans.
Chad,
Sure.
you laugh at the projected points there, 5 goals and no assists. But
Yeah.
I'm telling you, watching his highlight packages, when he passes, it's to get a give and go back to him. Like he is I'm driving the net with the puck and I'm doing it all type of guy. So he's a bit of a goal scorer. And yeah, I saw a couple assists in the highlight reel, but it's, dangles a guy and then puts it across the ice to a wide open one-timer. Like that's when he's passing. Otherwise, he's going through a guy's legs and straight to the crease.
So noted puck hog, according to Casey.
Get ready for that.
Great.
Watch it in the
Great.
tournament.
Great information.
Germany, just quickly, Germany always seems to have a surprise player that kind of stands out. Like obviously we talk about the Seiders and the Peterkas and the Stutzlas, but you guys will remember Florian Elias from a couple of years ago, and whether it's Penkin or somebody else, I could see someone jumping out like that on this German team and surprising us, because that seems to happen every year with this team.
For sure. Okay, the player that I wanted to bring up that I'm excited to watch is one of 7 players. Actually, I guess technically 2. I'm going to talk about 2 players here who are interconnected. I think that's fair. I think I get a pass here because these guys are brothers. And they're twin brothers, which is more interesting as well. And this is Fabio and Timo Kosha Kosei. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that. Maybe we can get a German on the pod one day and explain it to us. But
Can't wait for it to be Kos. But
yeah, it could be Kos. Could be Kos. I was thinking of Andre Kasha, noted not German player, similar last name spelling. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to go with Kosa. That's what I'm going to say. But twin brothers on a team, which is always exciting.
Yeah.
And yeah, neither of them played on the team last year. So these are new players to my eyes. And I just thought it was interesting that they get to play on this team on the biggest stage, which is the World Juniors, with their twin brother by their side. And like I mentioned, both have some experience playing in the highest league in Germany, the Dell, which is just interesting. There are only 7 players on this team who have that experience. Obviously, Case Penkin being one of them as the young player. But these two brothers, man, the Kosei brothers, they've got that experience in the Dell too. Not a ton, but enough that they've at least played a handful of games each. So it'll be very interesting for me to watch these two players out there. Just thought that was an interesting connection.
Yeah, I don't have a ton on them, but I think anytime you're doing the research for these episodes and looking into a team like Germany, your eyes are always drawn to the players that have played in the Dell, played in the top league in their country, and especially at the age of 18 or 17 years old, or even 16 in the case of Penkin. So no doubt, if there's twins on the team and they're both playing top tier hockey, you got to bring them up.
Of course. And like with these sort of lesser teams, I'm not sure if it's fair to frame it like that, but if we're being honest here, Germany's not expected to win a gold medal at this tournament. I think that's a fair statement to say. But when you're looking at teams like this, you're looking at the players who have either been drafted or are returning, right? So I could have started with a player like Carlos Handel, which is a Montreal draft pick playing in the queue. Could have went to a David Lewandowski, who was an Edmonton pick playing in the WHL, or a Maxim Schaefer, who's a Washington pick in the queue as well. There are some players who have experience playing in North America on this team, actually more than I thought. Like there's a lot of Q players, there's a handful of dub players, a few guys in the BCHL. So you could start with players like that, but I just thought it was interesting because I found this connection, and I can't remember the last time seeing twins on the same team in this tournament.
Yeah, no, cool to look at for sure, and don't really have much to add on the Kosei brothers, if that's how we're pronouncing it. But I will say that Germany is one of those countries that the NHL wants to have more games in, more exhibition games, and just more there to try and grow the game, because we've got a handful of German stars in the National Hockey League now, last time I checked. So
that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to take one of the low-hanging fruits on this roster, and that is David Lewandowski for the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, a prospect of theirs, Saskatoon Blades. Edmonton's got to be loving the fact that they have another German player coming into their system from the Western Hockey League. I'm sure they don't expect this kid to be the next Leon Draisaitl, but hey, pretty good production so far with Saskatoon. He's got 32 points in 28 games. Big body, known as just a very good defensive center, really good two-way game. He'll be expected to be one of the drivers, up and down the ice for this German team. So you always look at guys who are drafted. He was a 4th-round pick this year for Edmonton. And again, it's one of those teams that, needs to find those hidden gems in the later rounds while they're trying to contend for a Stanley Cup. Lewandowski, I think they might have one there. So really curious to see how he's going to be able to do for this German team. They'll certainly need him up front.
For sure.
Yeah, he was my player to watch last year for Team Germany. As a younger player, he stood out to me, especially with the North American experience. And I think at the time they were kind of projecting him to be a 2nd-round pick, and he ended up falling to the 4th round and got scooped up by Edmonton there. And I think that's going to be a good pick in the end. Has some upside to potentially play in the NHL due to his two-way play, and that's something you need in those middle to late rounds.
For sure. And I think anytime you have a player who is talented or can do something really special, whether it's play physically or play a two-way game or, can really shoot the puck, but is lacking in other areas, I think you take a chance in the mid to late rounds, because otherwise, what are you doing? Like you take a chance on that talent and then try to teach around that talent. But that's kind of the philosophy I think you should take. And the Oilers did that with picking this kid in the fourth.
That's right. Okay, fellas, we've got a couple of teams to finish off Group A here, Sweden and the U.S. So a couple of heavyweights that we are looking at here, starting with Sweden.
Sweden, man, I think they might be my early favorites out of this group, and potentially out of the tournament. Could see them in a gold medal game here. This team's loaded. And I mean, top to bottom loaded, especially up front, though. I'd say almost every forward on this team is notable and could be brought up on this episode. Their top six rivals any in this tournament. And I think in the end, it would be absolutely criminal if none of us brought up Ivar Stenberg. He's currently on pace to have the best draft eligible season in SHL history. In 25 games, he has 0.96 points per game. And to put that in perspective, the previous record is held by Henrik Sedin with 0.69 points per game. So beating that by 0.30. Others up there, Elias Lindholm with 0.63, Backstrom with 0.57, and Leo Carlsson, who went second overall, with 0.57. So just a phenomenal run in the SHL so far. He's projected to go third overall in the draft next season, which it kind of seems like he's starting to creep up and be in the conversations for number one overall. If not, he could definitely be the second overall pick. It's a draft with just world-class juniors showing up and continuing to score. If he has a world-class juniors and he continues to score the way he has been in the SHL, I could see at least second overall. In all U18 international competitions last season, he had 24 goals, 27 assists in 29 games. Most points ever by a 16-year-old in the SHL playoffs last season. He's got a complete elite skill set, incredible IQ, plays above his weight class, meaning that he protects the puck well. He uses his body, positions well, and kind of shields off players bigger than him. And that's really what's going to put him above the edge in this tournament. I feel like despite his size not being, the biggest guy, he's still going to play like a man amongst boys in this tournament. And it's going to be fun to watch him for Sweden, unless they're playing Canada. And not to mention, his brother has tore this tournament up 2 years in a row, and I expect Ivar to follow suit.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, his brother Otto was a St. Louis pick, 25th overall, 2023, and has played a couple NHL games at this point. I think I know 3 in my notes. So.
Recently called up, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Case, first of all, obvious pick, Ivar Stenberg. You have to bring him up because, it's a real, I think, legit 3-horse race here for the number one overall pick in 2026. And that's not something we were saying a year ago.
No.
I like how you brought up his playoff numbers in the SHL last year, because I think after playing 25 games and just scoring 3 points in the SHL last season, you could see why teams weren't as high on him in terms of his draft stock. But then going into the playoffs and kind of breaking out and being at about a half a point a game on a competitive team, through 12 games, like that's impressive. And I feel like that's when his name first started circulating a bit more as a legit contender for the first overall pick. And then, of course, this year, you've mentioned the stats, tearing it up in the SHL, just shy of a point per game, historic numbers in terms of points per game. So, you had to bring this guy up. It'll be interesting to see how he looks. And we'll be looking at the other 2 players as well in this tournament who are projected to go in the top 3 in 2026. So he and the other 2 players for that matter who we're going to be talking about, McKenna and Veerhoff, they have a lot of pressure on their shoulders this tournament to to show up well and to put on a show for all the world that will be watching. So Stenberg, fantastic player. You had to bring him up. It's a good pick, Case. I'll be watching him too.
Yeah, just reiterating a lot of what the two of you have said. Just this kid is just absolutely electric to watch. Can fly up and down the ice, play driver, incredible offensive numbers. And if you're the St. Louis Blues, just accept that this is a lost season. So you have a chance to get this guy and unite him with his brother Otto in the Blues organization, because he's a hell of a player and really has a shot to be Sweden's best player in this tournament, even as a draft eligible, much like it was the case for Macklin Celebrini on Team Canada. Talking to Craig Button about that a couple of years ago, I can definitely see this with Stenberg, given how highly touted he is going into the 2026 draft.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought that up too, because that's the first thing I thought of. We were talking with Craig Button, the fact that during that year going into the tournament, everyone was wondering how good is Celebrini going to be, and Craig comes on our show and says he's their best player. It did not mince words, said he's their best player, and I thought that was so cool for him to kind of take a stance like that. And for the most part, it was true. He was dominant at the World Juniors.
That team wasn't very good, but yes, he was their best player for sure. So I can see that being the case with Stenberg, and yeah, they are absolutely loaded. Maybe this is the year that Sweden can finally get through, what is it, the semifinals that they've had a really tough time with.
I think the last time they won this tournament was like early 2000s, was it not? Like it was ages ago.
Yeah.
So
the way I see it with Stenberg on this team reminds me of Lekaramaki, but more importantly, I think on the back end they have a much more well-rounded defense core instead of a Sandin Pelka, who you just know is going to be the quarterback, dishing the puck, all eyes on him, like funnel the offense through him on the power play. I think they're going to be funneling it through Stenberg and Frundell and guys like that. So it's going to be an interesting mix-up for Sweden to not be that, looking to the quarterback, the defender on the blue line.
Yeah. Yeah, a ton of good players on this team, honestly. Like you just keep looking at this roster and God, so many drafted players, so many talented offensive players. It's going to be a fun team to watch. Okay. For Team Sweden, I'm going to pick the low-hanging fruit for me, and that's the Maple Leafs prospect, Victor Johansson. Picking this player, very interested to watch him play because if I'm being completely honest, I don't know a ton about him. I wanted to go with the goaltender, Måns Goose, because that might be the best name in the tournament, or at least top 5. But I am going to go with Victor Johansson because he's the Maple Leafs pick, and I feel like I have to. Noted cousins with Alex Wennberg of the San Jose Sharks. Pretty interesting. Confirmed right there on Elite Prospects, so I thought that was cool. But yeah, just a highly skilled kind of playmaking defenseman here, like plays a bit of a two-way game as well. Interested to see what he looks like at the tournament. Of course, being a Leaf fan, like I've seen Leafs prospects be the defenseman of the tournament in a guy like Topi Niemela on Finland for back-to-back years. Obviously, that didn't turn into anything in the Maple Leaf system. But yeah, just interested to see what Johansson can do being a 4th-round pick in 2024 for the Maple Leafs, because as you guys both know, the cupboards are pretty bare in Toronto right now, and they could use all the help they could get. So if Johansson could turn into a player of significance, or at least a contributor in the near future, that would be great. So interested to see what he looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm bringing up with this back end here is I think that he's going to be leaned on to be a puck mover, and then so is Saline Wallenius as kind of the two offensive defensemen on this team. At least when you look at the team stats, that's the way it reads. And if that's the case, I mean, you're looking at a 4th-round pick and the 53rd overall pick in 2024 in Wallenius. So this isn't, Sandin Pellikka or a guy who led the team and maybe the tournament in time on ice is Wallander. So like they don't have those guys, or Edvinsson, or there's just so many top tier prospects that have come out of Sweden on the back end. And it's not really the case this tournament on the back end. And instead the forward core is just ridiculous. So
Yeah.
I wonder how that's going to shake things up in Sweden, and if maybe that's the thing that pushes them over the edge.
Yeah, like God, you mentioned that top six. Like looking at guys like Stenberg and Eklund and Frondell and Berglund, and like they've just got so many talented players up front. God, that's going to be fun.
Could we see a 5-man power play unit all with forwards? I wouldn't rule it out.
Sure.
With this forward group.
Sure. Why not?
Maybe
find a defensively responsible player to play defense, and then that might make sense.
I mean, Eklund is one of those guys, like just a very good two-way forward, and potentially a mid-round steal for the New York Islanders, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But talking about Johansson, obviously, like you look at that defensive pipeline for Toronto, it's pretty bare. Ben Danford obviously takes up a lot of the oxygen, but this guy can go out and have a good showing. That's good for the Leafs. It's good for Team Sweden. Just good for everybody all the way around. And it's still a pretty decent looking blue line with 5 NHL draft picks on it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about one of those NHL prospects on the blue line. Again, low hanging fruit. In terms of the back end, and that is Leo Saline Wallenius, draft pick of the San Jose Sharks, of course, and kind of this year's Axel Sandin Pellikka, but Sandin Pellikka light, I guess would be fair to say. Not expecting Wallenius to go out and get a hat trick in the opening game of the tournament here for Sweden, but should be their go-to guy on the blue line. And again, San Jose has to start kind of building their future blue line. And, we saw that they're not going to loan Sam Dickinson to Team Canada for this tournament. And but they've got a pretty good looking defenseman here in Wallenius, who should be, one of, if not the top defenseman for Team Sweden in this tournament. Again, not to the level of Sandin Pellikka like we saw last year, but should be very effective. And expect him to have a great tournament here for the Swedes.
Yeah, as much as I'd like to see a 5-man power play, 5-forward power play, this is going to be the guy that's going to quarterback this team on the back end. I don't want to beat a dead horse. Not going to be Sandin Pellikka, but he's still a very capable guy to be, handed the reins, so to speak, from these great Swedish defenders ahead of him. But I'll be watching him, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. He's going to have to eat up some minutes.
For sure. So interesting how some countries just breed a particular brand of player, and it just makes, like, it's so obvious that for Sweden, it's just talented puck-moving defensemen, and that's why we keep bringing up that, like, there isn't a go-to guy or two this year. It's kind of like more spread out or whatever, because that has just been a staple for so long. It's just interesting. Like, I don't know what the prototypical, Canadian player is, but I think it's more of kind of like a responsible, like two-way guy who can also score. You think of Finns as like defensively responsible. I don't know. It's just interesting,
It is very.
Okay.
Team USA to finish it off here for Group A. The U.S., of course, won the gold medal. Very good tournament for them in the nation's capital, in Ottawa. Unfortunately, that was not a good tournament for Canada, but the U.S. were very strong last year, just absolutely loaded at all 3 positions, and they've got a pretty good-looking roster again this year. So, Case, your player to watch on the Americans.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of players you can bring up here and just stacked once again, but I do think that Sweden's going to have the edge on in this group. but I wanted to bring up I'm going to steal one from Harper, actually. And I'm going to bring up a returning player in Brody Zemer, drafted to Buffalo in the 3rd round in the 2024 draft, out of the national development team, which is important because he's got a lot of experience with some of these other players on the team. But I feel like the points when he was on the national development team weren't outstanding. They were good, but not like, oh, Jack Hughes just beat Cole Caulfield and Caulfield beat this guy and he's better than that guy, and just world beater stats coming out of the development program. So we didn't really know what to expect out of Zemer going into the tournament last season, but quickly he was an important player for them, was found in the top 6 of this team, playing in all roles. He scored 3 goals, helping out on 4 on top of that. And really, you look at his stats here on the screen, he's pretty good numbers as a freshman at the University of Minnesota, which is where the tournament is. Pretty convenient. Mm-hmm. Last season, and now really cranking it up this year with 12 goals in 19 games. That's not the best stats on this team by any means. There's lots of guys that have more, but he brings sort of this mature, well-rounded game, and you're going to see him in kind of all situations. And maybe he's not the flashier names of a Hudson or a Hagens or, Yzerman or someone like that, but going to be a very important player for USA. And it kind of always seems like there's those guys on USA, the veteran guys who just log minutes and play big when it counts in the important games. And that's going to be Brody Zemer.
Sure. Always love a guy who, I don't know if underrated or understated is a way to put it, but just kind of climbs up the ranks quietly over time and becomes an important player. And yeah, Case, like you've alluded to, you just look at the production and how it's improved over time. And now he's in his 2nd year at Minnesota and he's putting up great numbers and scoring more goals than in previous years. So yeah, it's interesting always to see what a player will do when he's kind of, trusted a bit more. And he's one of 3 Buffalo picks on this team. So yeah, you can have one, but I'm sure Harp might take one of the other 2.
Just quick, I was kind of curious on where he's going to land, though. Like, he has experience playing with Hagens in the past with the national development team, but he's kind of despite his NCAA stats, he's kind of a pass first type of guy. So do you want him maybe driving the second line by himself, or do you put him with Hagens? I mean, Hagens doesn't have Peralt or Ryan Leonard anymore. So you're going to look for, is it maybe Yzerman, or is it, I'm blanking on his name right now. Horkoff. Yeah. That guy has a goal a game in the NCAA. Do you put him with Hagens? I don't know. I'm curious to see how that's going to go. What do you think, Harp?
Well, I big fan of Zemer, obviously, is potentially looking like a steal in the draft for the Buffalo Sabres. And watching Team USA a little bit last year in Ottawa, obviously, Boyum and Hudson took up a lot of the oxygen, but next on that list in terms of players that were just really noticeable, next is Zemer. And that made me quite happy, of course. And just the guy who's a Swiss Army knife. And as the tournament went on, like you said, Case, became such an important player for this American team, killing penalties, being out there in all situations. I will say too, the kid kind of looks like Captain America in a way, like he's kind of got that look to him. And I think, given the fact that he's from Minnesota, plays for the Gophers, and is having a great year, the tournament in Minneapolis, I think very quickly, if not already, he's going to be a fan favorite in this tournament for the host team, the Americans, defending that gold medal. So love everything that Zemer brings. Jarmo Kekalainen, the new GM in Buffalo, talking a lot about character being number one when it comes to evaluating talent and accruing talent. Well, character really stands out first and foremost for a guy like Brody Zemer, just willing to do anything it takes to win. We saw that last year. We'll see it again this year with him on this American team.
For sure. Definitely became a fan favorite last year. Could see him doing the same this year, like you mentioned. Teddy Stiga was another guy who became really important for that team. Again, another guy who, not necessarily expected to, like you're, hoping to rely on guys like James Hagens or Cole Iserman to carry the offense. But yeah, these other players on the periphery getting a bigger role, showing what they can do.
Really came down to the role guys like Zemer, and Stiga was another big one.
Yeah.
His first goal of the tournament was the gold medal winning goal, and what a time to get your first. So yeah, I mean, we look at the Americans, we first look at that top end talent, but then it's those role guys that really took over and had a huge impact for them last year. Certainly expect that this year as well.
For sure. Okay, my player to watch for Team USA, Case, you know who it is because we were talking about this player beforehand, but it's Trevor Connolly. It's the Vegas Golden Knights draft pick from 2024 in the first round, 19th overall. This is a player who has some experience at the AHL level, and we mentioned it before. I forget who we were talking about just about a half hour ago, but having that AHL experience or just playing against men in general, I think is really important. He has 7 points in 11 games for the Henderson Silver Knights this year. He projects to be, I think, a top 6 forward. If development goes well, I think Connolly's going to be relied on a lot in this tournament to produce offense. And just kind of be a go-to player in all situations. So that's the guy I'm going to be watching. Also, I should mention too, this is his second year getting experience in the American League. He played for Henderson last year, just a handful of games, 4 points in 6 games. So yeah, I think this is another guy who you can kind of look at his production and you look at where he was playing when he was drafted, drafted out of the USHL. And of course, that league is becoming better and better as the years go on. But, it's not a number one league that guys get drafted out of. Let's be honest here. So he has kind of worked his way up the ranks after dominating the USHL and then getting experience right away in the NCAA and then the AHL. And yeah, I just think this guy is going to be really important for this Team USA. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, the reason we were talking about it before is because I was thinking about taking him, because anytime I see a guy with a couple cracks at the AHL at this age, I've got to talk about him. That's just incredible. And you often don't see guys go to the NCAA for 1 year and then decide to go pro. So I think he's confident in his game. He's confident that he can be an NHL player and make the money so that he doesn't have to have that degree in the end. A bottom 6 guy for the team last year, so I expect his role to be elevated here. Another candidate to play with the Hagens because he's a winger who can score goals and a lot of goals. So could be the guy here. Another year older on the team, more confident, playing in maybe the second best team or league in the world. So expect big things out of Trevor Connolly.
Yeah, terrific speed. He's a burner for sure. Great off the rush, and just can fly down the wing. One of the only first round picks that Vegas hasn't traded as of yet. Yeah, exactly. So, just looking at Connolly, watch him go out, have a great tournament for the U.S., produce, and then he'll be flipped at the deadline by the Golden Knights to bring in somebody to help them win now. But
he's a San Jose Shark.
Yeah, exactly. But no, he's a burner again. Terrific speed and playmaking ability. 7 points in 11 games too with Henderson in the AHL. That is nothing to scoff at. So Connolly's one of those guys who is a player to watch on this U.S. team, and good for Vegas if they can have a guy like that stand out for an organization where the cupboards are a little bare, and he's one of their go-to guys in their pipeline.
Sure. Okay, wrap it up, Harp. Who you got as your player to watch for Team USA?
Yeah, well, I'm going to call an audible here. I was going to take some low-hanging fruit in James Hagens, but I will pivot over to Will Horkoff, who you mentioned a minute ago, their case. big 6'5" frame. Of course, his father, Sean Horkoff, who is working in the Red Wings organization, taken by the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're one of their 3 first-round picks in 2025, and did not expect this kind of production in his first NCAA season. He's playing with Michigan, 28 points in 20 games, 19 goals in 20 games. I mean, that's just incredible production. And according to Stephen Ellis over at Daily Faceoff, he projects Horkoff to be one of those guys that could move up the lineup quickly. And how can you argue that with his production? So again, just 6'5" frame, can score, kind of do it all at both ends of the ice. And my goodness, you know, an already good looking first round this year for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Ben Kindle, who of course made the team. They picked Billy Zonin and then Will Horkoff late in the first round. Looks like an absolute steal so far, and could very well move his way up this American lineup. So I'm pivoting a bit here, and I'm keeping my eyes on Will Horkoff.
Could
Kyle
glad Dubas not have picked this guy in Toronto? Why did he have to do it in Pittsburgh?
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought this up, Harp, because you both just let it slide earlier. My joke about his name, and no one said anything. I was like, oh, what's his name again? Horkoff? And we just moved past that. So yeah, the son of Sean Horkoff.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we have to be careful when making these connections. We've been burnt in the past by making assumptions. So yes, this is true. It is his son. Glad we clarified that.
Anyways, that's why I was like, what's it? His name's not coming to me. But 19 goals, 20 NCAA games. Why would you not just slot him in the top 6 right away, especially at 6'5"? Like, is he not going to physically dominate this tournament, especially the way he plays the game? So I don't know. It makes sense to have him kind of inserted right away, especially, I don't know, when you have guys like Higgins up front, who's a bit undersized.
Yeah, exactly. Why didn't Dubas and Wes Clark take all these players when they were in Toronto? But again, their work in the first round for Pittsburgh in this past draft looks pretty good so far.
Yeah, and computer's not cooperating with me right now, or I would share the screen. But what I'm looking at is a player on Horkoff's team, Nick Moldenhauer, who I think was a good pick at the time, honestly, a 3rd rounder of the Maple Leafs in 2022. But he's 21 years old, and his production is far less than Horkoff's. And it's just like, come on, Doobie, you couldn't have picked the 6'5", 200-pound burner who's scoring every game. Like, you had to pick a guy like Moldenhauer, who's 5'10" and whatever, respectable player, but it's just like, you couldn't have made 1 or 2 of those picks when you were here, old Doobie. And I'm a Dubas fan, you guys know that, but yeah, some odd decisions over the years. But
my outlook on him has changed a little bit.
Oh, shocker! He's not wearing the maple leaf now. He's getting some respect.
No, it's not just that. It's because their last draft was fantastic.
Yeah, well, you got to credit Wes Clark for a lot of that.
Yes, and that's the thing. Absolutely. So, all right. Well, gentlemen, that does it for part 1 of our 2026 World Junior Preview episode. We'll have part 2 coming up, episode 261.